The big problem is a private incident, which of course is the basis of In a Year with 13 Moons. And this is the death of his former companion, Armin Meier. And that was also plus a personal crisis. There was a crisis not as a director or as an artist, but he had a crisis somehow not being distributed. A film like Maria Brown wasn't distributed. So there was no film on the market, and Fassbinder's fame was, as you all know, one film after the other, and one film came after the other on the market. And so the only way he could somehow, first of all, overcome his personal crisis was to do this film. And I just remember when he got the news that Armin died, he was totally devastated, really ran away from everybody, felt like a haunted animal, and somehow hid himself in a hole, in a friend's home where he didn't go out, where he just closed himself in a room. And he wrote this beautiful essay in about 2 or 3 days. And then he went to Frankfurt, to another place, friend's place. He didn't know where to go. He even escaped from friends who really wanted to help him, especially me, I would say. But however, it was the situation, and he went to Frankfurt. He lived in the house of Volker Spengler and his partner, Bob Dorsey, and he wrote again some lines and asked Volker to take the main part, and so they started. He started in a way I can just explain it today from my now reflected way of seeing it. He tried to pull himself out of the water of despair by his own hands, and he had to do all by himself. There was nobody who, I mean, there were people who wanted something of him, like always, but in this situation, the story he has written was not a story any film board which existed at that time, and we hadn't that much film boards as we have today, was interested in. What was it? The story of a man who made a sex change because he had a relationship or not, or what business relationship, to a man who said, oh, it would be wonderful if, I mean, he said to him, I love you. And the man said, it's wonderful when you love me, but it would be easier if you are a woman. And then he goes to Casablanca and he makes a sex change. What is that story about? That's what the outer people saw in the script, and the story about Elvira Weishaupt and all the background. The background we don't have to forget. It's a story of a child who was born after the war. No, exactly just before the war ended. So again, all the background of Germany history. And even in that time, in the mid-end of the 70s, that was not a very interesting theme for people who wanted to give money or should give money. There was always this Fassbinder family, and somehow, of course, they hated to be members of the Fassbinder family, but they had to be there. It was this kind of thing. But still, he had around himself friends from former times. And of course, he asked Michael Ballhaus to do the camera, but Michael Ballhaus wasn't prepared to do it. And so he had just decided to do holidays with his family, which was okay, but Rainer felt lost. And so he said, like somebody would say, I will show you, I can do it without you. And I think Michael would have never thought that would happen. He said, so I do the camera by myself. And he did it. He did really everything by himself. And you will see this whole credit line where you see every like idea, script, production, set design, director of photography, editing, and of course director, Rainer Werner Fassbinder. It had to be, and it is not it's not a question of egoism. It had to be because otherwise he would have totally be destroyed for himself. He needed to have this kind of, I'm still director, and I'm still able to do my films, and I do them all by myself if nobody is helping me out. At the beginning, there was not Ingrid Caven, as I told you, to play the Red Zora. He had the idea of Brigitte Mira, the beloved Emmy from Ali, Fear Eats the Soul, but it was Volker who insisted on Ingrid, and I think it was a good idea.
So.
Volker started to have a small role in Mother Küsters Goes to Heaven. Then he had a bigger role, a beautiful role, in Saturn's Brew, in Bollwieser, in Third Generation, in Despair, in Berlin Alexanderplatz, in Maria Braun, of course, in Veronika Voss, he plays Gründgens. Volker always was a kind of following actor, and he was never a Fassbinder actor. He was an actor, and he's one of the greatest now in Germany theater actors. He's rather complicated in his way, but he's very unique. And Volker was asked by Reiner, and of course he said yes, and it was his first. Yes, it was his first appearance in a movie. I wouldn't say the first appearance in a. No, it was not his first. Sorry, it was not his first appearance. Of course not, because he had did this film before with Reiner. But it was his first real main part in a Fassbinder movie and in any movie. And so, of course, it was a great challenge for him. And as Reiner never he was an actor-director, but he didn't direct actors like you have to do this and that. Volker was the perfect match for him, because Volker really got into this role from the first moment on, and he dressed like a woman, and he tried to be like a woman, and he was Elvira Weishaupt. I don't know if there is anything to say if you see his performance more than what a great, unbelievable person who got a lot slimmer for the role. He really tried to be perfect, didn't drink, and did nothing what he usually likes to do. And I think it is really one of his best roles he ever played. There is this beautiful scene when Volker comes to see Anton Seitz the first time, and we get the story during the film. We know the story about Anton Seitz, that he was in a concentration camp in the Nazi time, and he wanted to go to America, but he passed Frankfurt and he couldn't go on because he just found a way to make money. First he had a whorehouse, and then he made money with that, and then he constructed in a way his whole empire, which is a side line told in this scene when he meets him the first time. Then we have the other side, the human side, with a citation of a Jerry Lewis film.
Face the music when you can follow, face to face and the trace is far away. Just face the music when you got worry, hurry, scurry, mama, kill them.
As I told it once to Larry Cardish of Museum of Modern Art, he was so astonished, and he said, "Oh, we have to tell Jerry Lewis that Fassbinder really was so mad about him, because Jerry Lewis wasn't, as we liked him here in Germany, Jerry Lewis wasn't accepted in America like we accepted him." It's very funny, I didn't know. We adore him, and Reiner adored him. He collected all his films as far as he could tape them. So these are all these little pieces which are the side stories of the Year of 13 Moons, which are, if I go forward, I would say, which make a life story of a person, of every person. We just forget. The slaughterhouse scene. I remember when we were in New York and showed the film. Was it shown at the New York Film Festival? I guess so. It was shown in London. I don't know if it was shown at the New York Festival. It could be possible not. People didn't like the film because of the slaughterhouse scene. That was a little bit too much. When I saw the rushes, and Reiner didn't tell me at that time that he is going to use the Torquato Tasso citation, what Volker cites in the background, I just saw it and I put all what I had. The scene is much longer than he had shot. I even took twice later on a traveling shot, because the text we edited together, or I edited together, I forgot it. However, the Torquato monologue was longer than the scenes he had shot. And my main source for the rhythm of the scene was the Handel oratorium, which I think is unbelievable, and unbelievably beautiful, and is a theme which he used even in his first short film, The City Tramp, which is a kind of self... could be. I mean, it is. You can have this imagination. It is a kind of theme he had often. He liked very much Handel, and which I used in chorale as well, without his obligation or his telling me, because he died after we had finished the editing. So I knew this theme was very important for him, and this theme had in a way something to do with the theme. He used it in City Tramp, his first film from 1966, and 13 Moons, the slaughterhouse scene, which is, let's say, it's a realistic and intense scene, which is not, you can't interpret it. You can't say, you know, he meant this and that. Just look at this scene. It has to do with life, with death, with surviving, with the sense of life, and with going on. And that is, for me, somehow this theme of Handel oratorium. As this shooting was very intense, nearly 6 weeks, and Volker somehow was his main collaborator in that film. There is nobody who was more important in this film than Volker for him. He mostly went to dinner with him or with his friend and companion Bob, and they talked about life, about politics, about everything, and sometimes also about the film. And then he took him one day to his room and sat down, closed the door before he sat down. And Volker didn't really know what he wanted to do with it, but he had a little recorder with him. And suddenly he turned around to him and he said, "Now, Miss Elvira Weishaupt, tell me something about your life." And they came into this real situation of the psychoanalyst who is played by Gerhard Sverens, and him as Elvira Weishaupt, who goes back into her childhood, in the roots of her wounds. And this is totally Volker Spengler. I really learned from Fassbinder that you have to use all kind of informations, all kind of patterns, like sound made by music, by words, by effects, and music, and then the camera movements. I mean, all his films are really movies. They move not only with the camera, they move with emotion. There is extremely tension and exchange of all kind of information.
In dem Moment, wo ich die Adresse angegeben habe von Irene.
I have a suggestion. I just could make a suggestion to everybody who sees that film and who is a kind of disturbed, maybe, by watching the film. I don't know how young people especially feel during this film, when they see this film, because of course it's not a film where you go out and have just fun and you say, let's have a drink. Maybe you do that, then it's okay. But I guess a lot of people get very touched by that film. My only wish is, as I felt it as a young person when I did the film, as I said, I was 22 at that time, I really let this film into myself. I really learned from that film. I learned from the story. I learned a lot for myself. This film is until today a film I have to see every not every year, but I have to see it very often because it brings me down to earth. It brings me to the bottom. It brings me to my own guts. And I know it has also been a part of my life, this short time when we did that film, and also it was the beginning of a new life of Rainer and of our life and whatever. And I know he was in despair, and this film made him going on to live for at least 4 years. I think it's very important to have these films, to let them in your brain, to think about them, and you have the chance to see them with it on a DVD all the time. I mean, don't get upset with it, and don't take it as a drug. You can also have a happy ending if you have a life like Elvira Weishaupt. But the story in this film, and the story Rainer had to tell, was the story she couldn't make it anymore because she hadn't had the possibilities to reflect and to, as we have this scene also with Seelenfrieda, she explains it exactly. She couldn't make a psychoanalysis because she had no parents. She had no roots. She had no roots, although she was looking for the roots of her wounds.